Life Uncut acknowledges the traditional custodians of country whose lands were never ceded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present.
Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. This episode was recorded on Darug Wallamutta land.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Laura, and I'm wearing what is, and I didn't realise this until I got here, it's made of, I think, nylon, and I'm already sweating.
It doesn't look breathable.
It doesn't breathe. Also, I think I'm highly flammable.
Especially don't drop any bombs. Don't do any whiz pops because you'll go up in flames.
Oh, I don't think farts just spontaneously catch into
it's
fire.
gas.
It's only
It's
if I'm
gas.
next to something that's flammable. Well, then it would be a double whammy, wouldn't it? No, I went to the bathroom before, did drop a few whiz bombs, went to the bathroom and I was like,
they're whiz pops.
I was like, I'm so sweaty already and it's only 7:30 in the morning.
But did you wear deodorant? Because you have a very bad habit. I actually don't know anyone that doesn't wear deodorant as much as you or forgets. It's not like you mean to, but every day you get here, you're like, oh, Brett, did you bring your deodorant? No, I don't carry deodorant around with me at all the time. You do now.
I have
It's
it in my
good.
bag. No, it's just that one step. You know, like some people always, I forget to moisturize my legs. I forget to put on deodorant. I forget to shave my vagina. Look, it's just another step in my life that I forget.
I don't often forget to do any of those. Okay, this is controversial. People will come at me, I know, because I have a feeling it's not healthy.
Oh God, here we go.
No, but when I shower at night, I cannot go to bed without showering and then I put deodorant on to go to bed, which is weird. It's a habit because when I know it's not normal, but because in my head, I get out of the shower in the morning, I put deodorant on. So at night, I get out and I put deodorant on and I know I probably shouldn't and it's bad and someone's going to write to me and say I'm going to get some form of cancer. But it's just a habit. So that's what I do. Sometimes it gets hot and sweaty at night and now I won't sweat.
Do you use the natural one that we all know? Can we acknowledge here now together, everyone hold hands, natural deodorant doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
If you use it, it's not working and
no.
everyone else around you knows but you don't. It doesn't fucking work.
No, you smell.
I've tried
it's
it.
you sweat.
I tried the crystal stick, you know, the one that you rub a bit of water in it and you rub a crystal under your
Why are
arm.
you rubbing that around your vagina as you talk to me like that? Like
Well,
you're rubbing
Isn't that where you put your deodorant?
Yeah, this explains so much. This is why you sweat and smell.
I mean, I put deodorant on this morning, guys, just not under my arm. I've held on to this for a while about natural deodorant. I know there's going to be some people who are offended, but it's probably the people who are using it and now they know it doesn't work.
I do wonder if natural deodorant works for some people.
Do you think?
Maybe.
I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. I think if you're hormonally a bit smelly, which let's all be real, I am, and I'm okay with it, it doesn't cut through. It's just not, doesn't have enough gusto.
We probably do need to start looking into the deodorants we're using.
Do we?
Yeah, I reckon.
Fuck, it's another thing. Look, I fall asleep with my phone under my pillow. I'm going to get some
You
sort
100% getting brain cancer.
Can you say that?
Probably
not. We'll probably get cancelled.
No. Okay, did I tell you this on the podcast, you guys, that I was reading about this study. So you know that there's this study about plants, the very famous study that went viral about two plants and they're same environment, same water, same amount of plant food, but like one was given heaps of love and the other was given hate words and the hate word plant died. We all know that study, right?
I don't. This is the second time you brought up this study to me in the last 2 weeks, which makes me think you've only just discovered it.
Everyone knows this study. It is literally worldwide.
What kind of plants were they?
I don't know the plants, but they were everything was identical. The only thing that was different was one was played nice music and one was given words of affirmation and the other one was given no love. But they were fed and watered the same. But the plant died that was given the hate.
Was the plant that was given hate, or maybe it was getting dirty talk and it didn't like it?
You want to be wet? Well, I'm only going to give you a dribble.
I'm going to make you so dry.
It was like plant. Yeah, sexy plant talk.
Okay, so what, the plant that was not given any like physical love, but it was still maintained, it was still given water, it was still given fertilizer.
Everything was the same except the words and the music. Like, so one was just given a nice environment to thrive in terms of loving environment and the other one wasn't. It's a very famous study. Look it up. Anyway, I was reading something else that was saying plants near Wi-Fi routers don't grow as well. I don't know if this study is
Brittany's
renowned.
sitting here with a tinfoil hat on talking about 5G.
Well, so guys, right where my Wi-Fi is in my house, I have this huge palm, and since I've moved and it's lived next to the Wi-Fi,
It's always been next to the Wi-Fi.
No, it was never dead. It was thriving, and now it's dead. And now I read this, and I was like, why can't my plant survive? Because I bought so much hardcore plant food. I have top of the range plant food. This plant gets everything it needs. The only thing I can think of, and all the other plants in the house are fine, but I read this study about the Wi-Fi, so I've moved it away from the Wi-Fi. I'm doing my own study. I've moved away outside and I bought a fake plant. It's literally plastic. It's a plastic plant, but it looks real, but I've replaced it with a plastic plant. So I'm going to see myself if this plant thrives now away from the Wi-Fi. Now, my point being, if that's true, Laura, if it's killing a plant, imagine what those waves are doing if it's next to your head.
Please keep us updated on the life cycle of your plant.
I am a scientist.
I don't think it has anything to do with the Wi-Fi.
Well, we'll find out, Laura Byrne.
I think it has to do with the fact that you're dating someone who lives overseas and you go away for extended periods, lock your house up and don't water your plants.
That is not true.
I mean, before that, you also had a long distance boyfriend, did the same thing for 4 months at a time.
Okay, there does seem to be a pattern here.
Okay, I wanted to give you guys an update. Really important thing that's been happening in my life. Like, just wanted to talk about my vagina a little bit longer, since that's what I do.
For your vaginal updates
on every single episode now, it seems. If you listen to last Tuesday's episode, I told the story about, actually there's 2 stories in this one. I was telling the story about how Marley complimented my big fat hairy vagina.
Yeah. How could we forget?
Yeah, and how I realized that gravity is taking a hold thanks to my 3-year-old. Well, it pays to have a well-circulated podcast. I had so many people, so many beauticians contact me and offer me, we joked about it, this M-face thing. It's kind of like zapping your vagina back into place. Yes, so I have had so many people contact me to try and give me vagina CrossFit, which I know is a compliment. I mean, I know that they're trying to be helpful, but it's just not, it's not the influencer freebie I was hoping for.
So are you going to do vagina CrossFit?
I was going to go and get it zapped just so that we could have content to talk about.
So don't even do it for that. Do it because you want to.
It's a facelift, but it's actually a vagina lift.
It's a vagina lift.
So I asked the question whether this actually existed, and it turns out it does exist.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and I'm going to a clinic and I'm getting vagina CrossFit, guys, and I'll let you know. If I snap back to a 19-year-old, you'll know about it.
I've done it.
No, you did the Kegel chair.
I did M-Seller. My friend's a beautician. She got this M-Seller chair. A lot of women might know about M-Seller. It's essentially the same sort of a thing, but it's more deeply internal muscle. So if you're incontinent for any reason, maybe you haven't even had a baby, or you want to
This is what Joanne McNally was talking about.
Yes.
This is the chair you sat on.
Yes. It's also if you want to have a better orgasm. They also use it for that because it stimulates nerves and stuff. Now, I didn't know this existed, but I told her I'd try it just to try it. It's pretty fucking hectic. It's like you're being electrocuted inside, but it's tolerable. Like, it's fine. You sit there, but you're like,
well, no, this is different. This is pads. This is like the pads that you put on your face. You stick your pads on your vagina.
Oh my God,
or
you
on
need
your
to
vulva.
do it.
Sorry, everyone. And it zaps it back into place.
You need to do it.
It defies gravity. Just tightens the skin.
Also, have you booked in?
Yeah.
When?
In 2 weeks.
Do you know what the annoying thing is?
I don't have a lot of time. How am I going to maintain this maintenance?
But you also can't film that for content because that's like OnlyFans.
Well, could I? Because I give 0 fucks these days.
What, you're going to film your vagina and put it on?
Maybe I'll just film myself from the midsection up, Anyway, to be honest, when I say I give 0 fucks these days, I received this comment on that video. So when I was talking about my big
when you were talking about your big gravity-driven vagina.
Yes, when I was talking about gravity taking hold, I received this comment. And it was this. Is Laura okay? She seems off the rails. And her voice has even changed.
Are you all right?
Am I okay? Are you asking me if I'm okay in that comment, or are you asking the people who follow me if I'm okay by association?
It's because they want to start the conversation publicly on your page.
About how I'm off the rails.
Yeah, because you're fucking loose cannon. You're off the rails.
Have I lost the plot?
Keisha and I wanted to have an intervention. Your voice is very different. She's a bit of truth in there, like touching on the truth.
Yeah, maybe I am off the rails.
No, you're not off the rails, but you're very chaotic. But that's because you're busy.
Cute though.
Cute chaos for sure.
Yeah.
Cute chaos.
All right. Well, anyway.
Okay. Well, you need to stop reading those negative reviews. Can someone go write Laura a nice review?
No, it's fine. There was another really nice one that was on podcast as well. Go read that.
We actually do get some mean reviews. We do, don't we? But don't read them. I used to read them and then they hurt my feelings, so I stopped it.
We do, don't we? We also get nice ones.
We
from
get
time to time too.
no, we get love. You guys are amazing. We get lovely ones.
Wait, I want to read you one more mean one while we're on it.
Is it about me?
It's funny. No, it's about me. I know. I'd never read you the mean ones. This one.
Thank you.
I would never read mean ones about you.
Hey, Brittany, look what they said about you.
I only read mean ones about me because it's funny. All right, here's one. Laura ruins it.
That's all right. I think I ruined it.
Laura does not stop talking about her life being a mess or that this person's not going to be happy.
Well, that's because she's off the rails, guys.
How difficult her children are, etc., or how long it'll be until she announces baby number 3 soon. Watch this space.
Oh my God. It's like, okay, we can giggle at the mean reviews, but if there's too many mean ones, sometimes it hurts our feelings.
Yeah, but not
We
yet.
are
Sometimes I
humans.
just laugh at them because they're great.
Life update. Went to Adelaide on the weekend with my sister Sherry. Adelaide is actually amazing. Have you been down there?
Adelaide is amazing.
People pay out Adelaide.
I
They're
don't know.
always like Radelaide. That's about all the payouts I know. But
But I mean, people, like there's an older demographic down there. I think
it?
people go there to retire and die. Oh, lots of churches? What?
what's called the City of Churches.
Oh.
Yeah, we learned that. Keisha and I learned that from a comedy show last week, actually, Danny Boy. It's so beautiful. The food and the wine is some of the best I have ever had in Australia. Like the food I cannot fault from any cafe we walked into, any restaurant, lunch or dinner, out of this world. And the vineyards are obviously beautiful. So I am actually blown away by how amazing Adelaide was.
My girlfriend lives there. She actually just came up for the weekend and we went and had dinner and she was saying she lives in a 3-bedroom.
She's like, this food's shit.
No, she lives in a 3-bedroom house with a yard.
Oh yeah, for like
she
$20.
pays-
Yeah.
No, $570 a week.
Something I do want to comment. Actually, I want to comment a lot about Adelaide because I actually can't speak highly enough about Adelaide. And
This
in
episode is about Adelaide.
Well, in my DMs, so many people were writing to me saying, thank you so much for talking so positively about Adelaide because most people bag it. And I was really taken back. I was like, I can't believe it must have a real name in Australia, but I don't know why because it was incredible.
Do you know what, to be fair, I think I used to bag Adelaide as well until I went there and I went to the beautiful beaches and went to the wineries and stuff. It's honestly so fucking nice and so underrated for a place to go on holiday.
Yeah. So and I didn't know this, but we have, Laura, so many lifers in Adelaide. I have not been stopped to say hello by so many people ever, and everybody was so nice and incredible. We're going to have to go down to Adelaide for a live show. Absolutely. Like it was, and I just want to say for everyone that did say hello, it really moved me. Like it was, you guys were just at a different level. You were so lovely and so warm and just amazing people. So it was, I just didn't know we had so many lifers in Adelaide.
That's so nice.
So, okay, Adelaide.
Wait, I do want to say something. You've mentioned live shows. I mean, Britt and I, I know that we're like mid-year now. Can you believe that we're in May? Yuck. We have been speaking about live shows. We're currently in the midst of discussions, but it is gonna happen this year.
Well, we have to go to Adelaide because I may or may not did tell everyone we're going to Adelaide.
We're going to Adelaide. I think we're going to do like...
everyone I met, I was like, we're coming for a live show down here.
We're doing like 6 or 8 live shows. We haven't decided yet, but
it's happening, national tour.
Yeah, we're getting to as many places as possible. Keisha's like, what the fuck? How is this how I'm hearing about this?
You know how this works. We're going to tell you the week before. Life's going to be chaotic. We're going to put a show together in a week.
No, it's going to be awesome. It's not going to be until the end of the year, but yeah, we're in the midst of trying to organize live shows.
Cool. We're really cool.
That's going to be fun.
So watch this space. So one of the highlights for sure, and everything was a highlight, but I'll mention this one particular place, was down the Rabbit Hole Wines. Now it's a vineyard.
It's owned by the influencer girl.
She was. Her name's Elise Cook. So Elise Cook was a travel influencer, one of the OGs, I'd say, in Australia. But before it took off.
Frustratingly pretty.
She's ridiculous. She's so sweet. She's beautiful. I have followed her for a long time. I didn't know her. I just followed her from before. She was traveling around Australia, right, in a van. And they ended up stopping in Adelaide. They fell in love with the place. And I feel like I watched this whole progression because that's what Instagram is. They bought some land, they built a vineyard, they put their bus on it that they traveled and they've turned it into like a tasting menu. Anyway, I've watched it unravel for years and I finally went there and it was, I am blown away. It was the place was so aesthetically beautiful. Everything to a T was amazing. The staff were amazing. The food was amazing. The decor, it was just one of the most incredible places I have visited in Australia. And that is one of the biggest calls.
Wow, that is such a big call.
You
Jeez.
need to go there.
You would expect it to be aesthetically pleasing considering that she was like queen of Instagram for a while.
Well, this is what I said to Sherry. I said, you can tell that somebody that was in this world created this place because it's so beautiful.
You can stand in any corner and get the right shot.
It's so amazing. Anyway, that was...
There's ring lights all over the place.
No, there's not, but there's so much natural light everywhere.
Oh, mate, that's all you need. Thank God.
Anyway, cannot recommend Adelaide enough. Now, coming off a high of the weekend is I have another update, but it's a bit of a darker update.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is, yeah. But it's a serious one, and that's why I want to talk about it. So it's a bit of a mood killer, but you might have remembered if you follow me on Instagram, probably like a month or so ago, I put a call out on my own Instagram for a skin doctor referral. A skin clinic because like skin cancer, I should say, because I'd been to some skin cancer checkups in the past and I didn't love them all. And so I wanted a referral from people that actually had been somewhere and loved it and had a good feeling because it's so important. Like we know that Australia has the highest skin cancer in the world.
Oh, I've been so bad. I know I shouldn't admit this and this is going to be the real kicker for me to go, but I've not gone and got my skin checked since I was like in my 20s.
Well, I'm now making you go, Laura. But this is the crazy thing about this story is so many people, and I had more responses to that than I've ever had, more people recommending this clinic. Now, all these people were saying, go to this Coogee clinic, go to Dr. McDonald. And then people were like, I can't remember the woman's name, but it's from Coogee, Dr. Sarah, all these referrals for this one person. So I was like, okay, overwhelmingly, this person sounds great. Booked in, went there, walked in. You won't believe who walked out, but my best friend from when I was 11 years old. So this skin doctor.
How did you not know her name? Were you not like, Dr. McDonald, there you are, unless they've gotten married and changed their name?
We grew apart in our high school years. Then I ran into her as an adult. We worked at the same hospital together, but she was an emergency doctor. Now, when I was at a hospital in Sydney, we worked together in emergencies. So I didn't click because I didn't know she'd changed professions, but she's specialised in skin cancer. And she's a skin cancer doctor now. So it was this really straight, we were talking about when we were 12 and had sleepovers together. It was really nice. But I have some things on my face that I was worried about that are precancerous basically. They are called solar keratoses. I don't know if we've got more how you'd say it. But
solar keratoses.
Yeah, like cacti.
Growing on my face.
Nothing like that. Anyway, on a serious note, I have these things on my face. I went there specifically for a few of them that I was worried about, but also a general checkup. And funnily enough, the 3 that I was worried about were what she pointed out, and she said these are precancerous. So they are called solar keratoses, and essentially if left, they will turn into a skin cancer. It was a bit of a shock because you always think that this stuff's never going to happen to you. And I've worn sun cream all through from like 20 onwards.
Yeah,
but the damage is done.
But we got fucking shafted when we were teenagers.
Oil. Go lay in the sun in your oil.
Like, my mum was like, oh, you've got a pimple. Go and get some sun on it. And then it wasn't until I was about 25 that I was like, oh, you gypped me. That was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
My kids, I mean, granted, they're only a few years into their life, but they have never experienced what it is to be sunburnt. And they have been to the beach.
Which is great.
I take those kids to the beach every single day in summer. But for us when we were kids, I think I was sunburnt every single day in summer. Like I don't ever remember not being sunburnt when I was a kid.
I shouldn't laugh.
So bad. It's so true. My mum.
You put the sun cream on once, but then you're out all day and you don't reapply.
Totally. We'd get to the beach. My mum would like slap it on once. Okay, but you mentioned this. You have to do this like hectic treatment now, which is going to start as of tomorrow.
Today. So while we're talking about it, what these solar keratoses turn into is called an SCC, which is a squamous cell carcinoma, just so we're covering what we're talking about here. And that's the bad stuff, right? That's the cancer. So I've started this, she's put me on this treatment and it is hectic. Now, I will document it for you guys, but it's going to be very confronting. So it is a cytotoxic treatment that you can't even touch without gloves. It's a special referral that comes from a different state. It comes wrapped in multiple plastic bags. It is very, very highly toxic because it literally kills anything it touches. So I have to apply it to my entire face and it goes for probably 2 to 3 weeks and it is essentially, depends on how bad your skin is, but it is going to make me look like my face is going to be a giant bright red, not even a burn, scab, like big. It affects different people obviously differently, but the idea is it completely burns all your skin off because it stops your bad cells from duplicating and that's what turns into the cancer. but it also kills the good stuff in the time being.
When you mentioned this to me the first time, I was like, Brittany's just getting a chemical peel and she's lying.
Then I showed you.
She's just going to get a chemical peel.
She's getting face surgery.
You're like, so I've got skin cancers. I have to do this. I'm doing this because my dermatologist told me that I had to, and really you've just gone and gotten like 4 lasers,
Botox,
skin blasted off, some laser genesis, Fraxel laser in her facelift.
Absolutely. I'm going to come back with a whole nose job, everything. No.
Yeah, Brittany comes back, looks like a completely different person and a butt lift.
I'm Kardashian. I'm Kim Kardashian. But I was like, it's just the face.
Oh, guys, I just use this cream. It's crazy.
But wasn't it different when I explained to you what was happening, and then the difference from what you imagined to when I showed you a picture? You were like, whoa, that's because I showed you a picture of what's going to happen. It's hectic. So
yeah, I think the best way from what you described it to me is that the cream doesn't activate your whole face. It's like the areas that are precancerous are the areas that really become inflamed, and they're the areas that everything goes red, but they're the areas that it really attracts to, and they're the areas that scab over quite a bit. So some people have had super severe reactions to it, and some people's reactions are a lot milder.
Yeah, there'll definitely be hectic reactions. It's unlike anything I can explain. So I will take some photos and document it, because I do think it's really important that we talk really openly about skin cancer and what it does. And I would much rather look like a really walking, scary, scabby-faced person for a few weeks than develop a skin cancer. Absolutely. So,
yeah, and I mean, Keisha, you're only, 27?
She's
9.
Yeah, she's 30.
She's 27. She's 29. Keisha's 29 and she's had 5 things cut out of her. Go get your skin check, guys. This is your reminder. And that's coming from the person who hasn't been and is about to book in, because now we all know that Dr. Sarah is going to be very busy.
Well, so quickly get in before the episode comes out, Laura.
Got to call her today.
Yeah, so this is definitely a reminder for everyone to go and get your skin checked, because it really does happen to anyone. And I'm very, very lucky that it's not skin cancer yet. This is a preventative treatment for what I have got to stop it turning into the cancer. So I don't want it to go out that I've got skin cancer. I don't want that to be a headline, because I don't. But the whole idea is I'm stopping that from developing.
And this is also us pre-warning you that we probably won't have videos for 2 weeks.
I am off camera for 2 weeks. It's going to be Laura.
This whole story is so that 1, you get checked, and 2, you understand why there's no videos for 2 weeks.
There's definitely no videos.
All right, well, before we get into talking about what we're talking about on today's episode, which is immediacy culture, we're not going to get into that immediately because there's something else I want to talk about.
Because we are patient. We have developed patience.
Do we? I don't have any patience in my life.
No, you have 0.
No, I have none. I have children. They've taken every last moment of my patience.
They took your boobs, they took your vagina, and they took your patience.
And they took my patience.
Yeah.
What else did they take? My sanity.
Soul.
My sanity, my soul, my joy. Okay, no, I wanted to bring to you an article that I came across because I wanted to know how you feel about this, Britt. Now, there is a chef who is he's a Michelin star chef, very
top notch,
as high as it gets. His name is Dabiz Munoz. Definitely I'm going to say that wrong. He's a Spanish celebrity chef, right? So he just went and did a little, what would you call it? He went and did a little hiatus in Japan where he learnt some new skills. He probably thinks that sushi is a dinner meal, and he is bringing back...
sushi is a dinner meal.
He's bringing back one of his techniques that he learnt to Madrid. Now, he has come across a very unusual ingredient that he wants to start implementing in his food, for it's creamy, it's rich, it's decadent, it's silky texture. Okay, what it is that he is going to start incorporating into his dishes is fish semen. I don't want any semen in my mouth at all, to be honest. But
it doesn't matter if it's from a fish or a husband.
No, I'd probably prefer fish semen if I had to choose.
What you're saying is now he has to find a fish, masturbate the fish and put it onto the sushi.
I think they just cut it out. I think they just cut into like its little testes and pull it out.
Like the little semen does.
Do fish have testes? I don't know. Wherever.
Yeah. Well, otherwise, where's the sperm come
semen
from?
sacs. I don't know. It's not like
Put your Google down. Where do fish semen come from?
Imagine being the one that has to masturbate a fish to get it out. No, they just cut in and pull it out. When I first read this, I was like, oh my God, yuck, that's so gross. I understand that it's a delicacy in another country and, you know, people have different things, and in different countries there's different things that we lean into. But then I was also like, well, we do eat fish roe, which I still think is kind of weird, but I'll eat it if it's on top of sushi.
Yeah, because fish roe is fish eggs, so we're eating that.
Yeah, so we'll eat ovulation. We'll eat chicken eggs.
My thing is, look, I'm not yucking anybody's yum, but do we need to go to this extent? I mean, like, I just looked this up. So It's loved for its silky smooth texture, striking sea-like flavour, mainly extracted from pufferfish, monkfish, and sometimes cod. Cod's one of my favourite fish.
Although
I've
I think
never tried
that
cod semen.
But cod is probably like the basic one. Like the pufferfish and that is like the high end. And then if you're going to have like basic semen, you're getting cod. That's like the lowbrow.
I just realised my favourite food of all time that my mum made
Is cod semen.
No, it's cod with white sauce. Has she been putting fish semen on my cod for? Oh my God, she's ahead of the game.
Some people might think it's bechamel. Other people will think it's semen.
My thing is like I'm all for trying different stuff, but the effort that you must have to go to this, it says you have to gently separate the sperm sacs to extract this white toned pinkish semen. Surely the taste can't be that amazing. Like surely the benefit doesn't outweigh the time frame to extract the semen.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. But this
Can you
Minoz
try
guy,
it?
okay, so Minoz goes, grilled pufferfish semen was indescribable. It blew my mind enormously. But, okay, this is the thing. There are so many different random stuff that people incorporate into food. And in certain areas, it's more acceptable. Like obviously in Japan, this is not a big deal. It's obviously something that's seen as a delicacy. But when you take it out of context and you bring it into another place, like if somebody was going to start serving fish semen in Australia, I remember when even eating sushi was like, wow, that's exotic. Teriyaki, ooh, exotic.
That is so shit.
Do you remember?
Oh my God, it's raw.
Maybe in 20 years' time, we'll all be drinking and whatever.
Look, if I went to a Japanese restaurant, I would happily try it. I'm open to trying things.
Would you?
Yeah. Wow. Would you not?
Do you know I once ate goat testicles? I didn't know that that's what I was eating. I was in Nepal and it was it was kind of like a grill plate, I guess. It wasn't really a curry. It was kind of like a dry curry, I guess you would call it. Anyway, I ate it and I was with a Nepalese person at the time and they made a joke and said, oh yeah, mountain oysters. And I was like, yeah, mountain oysters, ate them. And it was
like,
only
how are there oysters in the mountain? Let me pull up Google.
But it does make me think whenever I hear about these like very unusual food items, i.e. testicles, one, I think about I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. But I also think who was the first person? Like who was the first person that walked into a field and went, I'm going to suck that cow's titties? Who was the first person that thought that's a good place to get a food source from?
See, the milk thing I get, right? Because it makes sense. That's what's feeding another animal. Like it's giving life. So I sort of get that.
No, you say that, but then why is it okay to drink a cow milk but not rabbit milk? Or like rat milk. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you would, because the quantity was being
well, yeah, imagine trying to milk a rat, Laura. Fine. No, but I guess what I'm saying is, right, okay, think of back to the caveman years.
Your face throughout this entire episode so far has been pure confusion, which doesn't lead me with much hope as to how everybody else is feeling.
She's like, I don't want to have to put this shit out.
Keisha's like, usually I'm so proud about the content I create. What the fuck is this mess?
This is what my life has come to. We're talking about bull's testicles.
We're talking about milking a rat.
Beautiful and brave. What I mean by that is, right, think of the caveman years where it is normal to go and say, okay, I'm so hungry, I have to find my own food. Here's a wildebeest. I'm going to eat every part of it. I'm going to eat the testicles as well because it's another part of it. You don't know back then. Where I think it's strange now is we have so much food on this planet. Like people don't need to go and get a fish and then extract it to the point of this little delicate operation to extract the sperm to eat it. That's like, for me, I'm like, why are we thinking of doing that now? I get it in the caveman years, but why do we have to go to that extent now?
Well, no, there's lots of restaurants, even in Australia. What do they call it? Snout to tail, where they use like the whole of the animal. And it makes you think, where are they using some of those parts? If they're using all of it, where are they putting those bits?
I've never heard of snout to tail.
Where's that butthole going?
Is that a restaurant in Sydney, snout to tail?
No, but they do. Like lots of restaurants will say that they use the entire animal, which sounds so, like when you hear that, you're like, yeah, good, resourceful. I'm so glad that nothing is going to waste.
Totally.
But then when you think about nothing going to waste, you're like, oh, fuck, what am I eating?
No, back to the fish semen.
Anyway, look, that was a lot.
Thanks for bringing that.
You're so welcome. I really think it's important to hit the hard-hitting news sometimes. So we wanted to talk about immediacy culture on this episode. Now, the reason why this came up as a conversation was because one of y'all lifers slid into the DMs and was like, hey, why don't you do an episode on immediacy culture? And we were like,
that you're about to do this really deep meaning. Like the reason this came up was I had this revelation one day when I was impatient waiting for an appointment. But no, you're like, the reason we did this is you asked for it.
Yeah, literally. No, sometimes you will send us stellar recommendations of people that we should interview. But if you've been listening to the pod for a long time, you would know know that back in the day, Britt and I used to do just one-on-one chats.
We were the talent.
We were the talent. We used to learn about so many things, and we would do the research, and then we would bring it to you as digested as we possibly could digest it.
Now, you guys asked for this episode on immediacy culture
when we say
2 years ago, but we wanted to be patient. So here it is.
But also when we say you all asked for it, it was one person. There was one DM that slid in that said, can you do an episode on immediacy culture? But it did spark a conversation between the three of us around the fact that we do live in a society now that plays into us wanting things literally immediately. We are so horny for having things in the now. Whereas like I would say we're of the generation where we've kind of straddled both. We grew up knowing that things didn't come that easily. Things weren't just at the touch of a button. But now, because of convenience, because of apps, because of technology, we now live in a society where literally you could have pretty much anything you want or need at the click of a button. And we wanted to talk about how that has impacted us, what impact that's had on our patients, how that affects our dating, the way that we show up in work, and also talk about what's that doing, you know, in how we raise our kids.
Well, you also don't realize about how much it permeates our life. When we started to have this conversation, I was like, immediacy culture. In my head, I was like, what?
Ooh, buzzword.
Well, I was like, yeah, so buzzy. I'm going to have to look up Urban Dictionary. No, but I thought, okay, immediacy culture. What is that? Let me learn about it. And when I started to read about it, I was like, oh, it literally impacts every single aspect of our life.
Yeah, but the thing I didn't like about it is that a lot of the stuff that's out there at the moment talks about how negative immediacy culture is, how it's like such a stain on society that we can have pretty much whatever we want at our fingertips, because it creates a lack of patience and it also creates a sense of entitlement that we're entitled to have whatever we want at the click of a button. But also I think it's really important before we unpack like the ways in which it can be negative, I don't want to skim over the fact that I think it is absolutely brilliant in a lot of ways as well. Like you can order food to your house, Uber Eats. You don't even have to think about what you're going to cook. You don't even have to think about doing a grocery list. Everything that you need can be delivered to you.
But even if you do a grocery list, it can also be delivered to you.
Oh yeah,
like,
if you're organised.
Well, no, you can order it for the next day. This is the point. Like there is everything you could possibly want at your fingertips.
You can also go online, do your online shopping, way too much of it, which is what we all do. You can find a boyfriend or girlfriend online.
What, there's other ways to find them?
Well, but
That's the only way I've ever found them.
But it means that you almost don't have to think about or pre-plan because everything now is so convenient. And this idea around immediacy culture came out of convenience, right? It came out of a need. People were like, well, how can we bring that to you, or how can we make that more streamlined? And then someone created an app, and then that's the world that we live in now.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Would you consider yourself a patient person or an impatient person? Because the two words that surround immediacy culture sort of link back to patience and impatience.
I think I am it depends on the part of my life, and it depends on what's going on in my life. I think when I'm...
Overall, you got to pick one or you're going to be kidnapped. This is my game. Answer the question.
I would have thought I was a patient person until I started to research this, right? I would have thought, like I'm patient with my kids most of the time. But when you think about it, like being on hold on a call, can't stand it. Can't stand it. So impatient. Having to line up for coffee and wait, won't line up for anything.
And when you say you're impatient on a call, what happens? Because sometimes you have to stay on that call. So you mean you get frustrated, you get angry? Like what is the visceral reaction to being on hold?
I'm not like angry at the person who picks up the phone. Like it doesn't make me an angry person. I just now would refuse to wait. If the call was going to be too long, I'll do whatever the option is. Usually when, you call, say, NAB or something, they're like, their call is going to be 10 minutes wait. You can leave a message and someone will call you back. I'm not someone who will line up for anything now because I feel like I've been conditioned to think, well, I don't need to line up.
A good example of that, actually, I'm sure you're not even thinking about it right now, Laura, but it was only a couple of days ago that you were like, bless Matt's soul. I let my car insurance lapse because I couldn't be bothered to call up and go on hold. So he did it from home. He's like, I will sit on hold for you to get your insurance because you got to the point that you let your insurance lapse because you're like, fuck being on hold.
I was like, I'm going to drive around in this car.
No one crashed into me because I'm not fucking going on hold.
It's so true though. But don't you think now, I mean, I see this from a business perspective, right, with Tony May. Back in the day, and this was, when I say back in the day, when we first started our online retail store, we were pretty quick to doing online shopping, right? And this was going back maybe 13 years ago. our shipping terms were up to 2 weeks back then. Up to 2 weeks was standard. And we would often do made to order. So like if you placed an order for a bracelet, it would be made, it would ship within sort of 10 days after that. Now, because of things like, the Iconic, who we do love, Amazon, there is this expectation now that when you place an online order, you receive it the same day.
Which is wild when you think about it.
Or you receive it the next day. Think about how many times you felt impatient when something's been delayed by a day, the inconvenience that causes to you. Because the fact that we live in an immediate society, it means that a lot of people put things off to last minute. So you order things knowing, well, it's going to arrive that same day, which then means that if anything goes wrong, the inconvenience of it going wrong or the inconvenience of the delay is even greater.
When I think of am I patient or impatient, I would put myself as patient. I really would. There are things that I obviously get impatient about, but I think overall, if I had to group myself, I find myself very patient. And I think a big part of being patient and impatient comes down to how busy we are in life. Because like if you're a mum, there is never not something that you have to do, right? So the result of having to do 100 things is impatience because you don't have time to waste. So when someone's taking too long, you're like, hurry the fuck up because I've got to be somewhere in 10 minutes. Now, whose fault is that? Is that the person that's taking 10 minutes to make the coffee's fault? Or is that your fault for developing a level of impatience? Because I don't think it's the person making the coffee's fault.
No, of course not. But I also think it leads into this idea that we have been subtly over the past 10 years groomed to think that everything should be happening now.
Absolutely.
Like we have been groomed to be conditioned that things happen fast. And so when there is an incident where something is, thrown out of whack, where you have to wait longer for something, and I'm not just talking about insignificant things like getting a coffee or having to do your car insurance. I'm talking about life events now as well. When you have to wait for something that you perceive to be beyond a, acceptable wait time, our level of frustration has increased.
Well, think about this, right? And this is, a walk down memory lane for many people. Some of you are going to be like, what are they talking about? Growing up, when we wanted to have a movie night, with your girlfriends on a sleepover on the weekend or your family, it would be an event.
Video Easy, baby.
Well, all week, Blockbuster, Video Easy, all week you would say, can't wait for this weekend, we're having a movie night with your friends. The weekend would come, you'd all get together at the same house. Then you'd either walk down to the closest DVD or VCR store with all your friends. If you had a movie in mind, you had to hope to God no one else had rented that movie out. You had to walk down the aisles and be like, damn it, it's gone. What are we going to do as a backup?
We'll put our name down for next week. Maybe we can watch it then. There's only 3 of them in the store.
So then you had to pick something else, take it home, and then you had it for 24 hours or you had to pay more money and then you took it back. And that was it. Now there is nothing you cannot watch within 2 minutes. Within a click of a button, maybe you have to pay $5, $10, whatever it is, but there is nothing literally that you cannot watch on the spot. You could sit there and be like, I want to watch this, and in 2 minutes it's playing.
Yeah, I mean, you used to, not even just with going to Video Easy, but you used to, get served your favorite TV show once every week, and now you can binge watch an entire series in one sitting. But do you not remember, I mean, just speaking about like consuming content in that way, I mean, we were too young. It wasn't like we were watching porn, but if you wanted to watch porn.
Where is this
going? If
going?
you wanted to watch porn, you would go to Blockbuster. You'd go to the adult section. You would pick up a video. Then you would like sneakily go and have to like hire it out.
You seem to know a lot about this,
Well,
Laura
because
Byrne.
when I was a kid, I used to always walk down that aisle and be like,
Laura Byrne Johnson.
Laura Byrne Johnson. That's kind of like how you would be able to access it. So if you wanted to fucking get porn, it was a considered thing. You were like, I'm going to get in my car and drive to Video Easy.
And everyone knew you were going to masturbate that night.
Yeah, go and hire out some porn.
You're walking down Video Easy being like, it's going to happen tonight, guys. I'm getting lucky.
Whereas now, 30% of internet use, that's a stat, I found that, 30% of internet use is made up by pornography, people searching and Googling porn. And I think one of the reasons why this is so interesting, this conversation around immediacy culture, is because it links into temptation, right? Because it is so easy to access every single thing that you need now, whether it be food, whether it be pornography,
sex,
whether it be
boyfriend,
everything.
movies.
Yes, sex, drugs, everything is so easy to access, sex, drugs, rock and roll, baby, that it makes it so hard to have a level of self-control.
Do you know what else it is too? That's a really good point. If we're going to link this temptation and immediacy culture into love, relationships and dating, this leads us into this whole aspect of the grass is always greener. And I think this is a big part of the problem on why people, and I don't want to use this term, but people trade in too easily and too quickly these days with dating, because as soon as a problem arises, you don't have to go back out and court someone for 3 months like we used to have to do to try and meet someone, fall in love, start the process, literally buy them flowers, take them on proper dates, walk to their house because there was no phone. Like you had to put in so much effort. But now you can roll over in bed and be searching for your next partner while your current partner is in your bed. I do not advise that, but people can do that because of immediacy culture.
Yeah, and I think there's people who are more prone to it than others.
Absolutely.
If you're someone who is codependent, and when I was researching this and I was thinking about my own experience, we all know that I was a codependent bitch back in the day. But if you're someone who's codependent, I think that that's something that is it even more problematic for you, because instead of having to, say, for example, go through a bad breakup, work on what happened in that breakup, why did that relationship not serve me, what do I want differently, you can so easily fill the hole with somebody else who's available, because you've always got people in rotation via dating apps. And by doing that, all you end up doing is you fill your time with somebody who you know you're not going to end up in a long-term relationship with, but by being with them, you're filling a hole, but you're also sacrificing the ability to find someone who could be the right person for you.
Actually, jumping in, I mean, I read this thing when we were doing the prep for this. I thought it was a little bit contradictory to what I imagined. You were talking about this immediacy culture of like swiping right, and we're having all these matches and it's all available at literally the swipe of the finger.
RSI and the thumb.
It was a study by a group of people at Evolutionary Psychological Science, and they basically got all these people to discuss how many people they had actually met up with from their Tinder matches. So traditionally, you would have had to go to a bar, you would have had to talk to someone. You might be 15 minutes into a conversation when you find out that they've got a partner, they're not single, and so you're like, oh, fuck, like back to the drawing board. And now dating apps remove that. So we have immediacy with we already find each other attractive because we have matched. But of those matches, they found that only 2.5% of your matches you were meeting in real life. So like, it's quite actually a really low statistic if you think about how available you would think it would become, because you're removing the factors of like, oh, they might have another partner, or they might not be attracted to me, or they might not be into me.
Well, it just makes you wonder, right? If you've made 100 matches and you're only meeting up with 3 people, why the hell have you made 100 matches? Because you've matched them. If you're matching them, essentially it should be like, cool, we're vibing each other, that's why we're matching. But it makes you wonder if people are just feeling a void at home.
We know that that's the case, right? Like people are using online dating as validation. Like people use it for all different reasons, but like validation's a big one. People use it as a fucking game. Some people use it to, feel good when they're actually in other relationships. There's many reasons why people use online dating.
When I think about it, I was always really selective. I didn't want to be one of those people. I matched with few people because I was like, I don't want to waste my time. But then sometimes I would go back onto my online dating and I'd be like, why the hell did I match that person? I'd never spoken to them. I look at them and I'm like,
must have been feeling shit that day.
You had a moment of vulnerability.
So sometimes I was the same person. The bar. I did. And I was like, why? Even sometimes someone would write to me and I wouldn't even write back. And I was like, what a bitch, Brittany. Why did you match the guy?
See, I was the opposite to you. I'd fucking swipe. I was like, could date him, could date him, could date him, could date him, could date him.
And did you ever talk to them though?
No, fuck no. Never. Because
I could.
It was in a moment of sadness where I was like, I'll date any of you. Are you single? Do you have a heartbeat? I'll go for it.
Yeah.
But I think that that's why, this is one of the negative spaces, right, where it leans into this idea that it's impossible now for us to be fully focused on the present because everything around immediacy culture is working against us. So just say you did have that moment of weakness where you swiped right on people who you wouldn't have, and then you've matched. It's like all of what you wanted 4 hours ago is different to what you want now because we are served content and we're served stimulus so quickly and so rapidly that things and the landscape changes so quickly. Whereas before, you'd have a crush on someone and then you would go out on a date and that might be the only person that you'd been invested in for 2 weeks.
Well, it's all you'd think about.
That's all, whether you liked them or didn't like them, it was like that's the only person that you actually put 100% of investment into. But now we're putting investment into so many people at any one time that the rapid change of pace is so quick. And I think a lot of this has to do with how we consume not just online dating, but how we consume content now. The fact that you can sit there and scroll Instagram and you get this constant hit of new information all the time. And that if something hasn't grabbed your attention in 5 seconds, you're no longer going to invest your time into it because you're like, well, there'll be something else that'll grab my attention. There was a research study that was done that showed that on average, we can only look at a website for 40 seconds before we get distracted. So we will only do one thing, whether it be digitally on our phones, whether that's online dating, whether that's reading an article, whether it's sitting on Instagram, whatever it is that you're doing will only capture attention for 40 seconds before you end up going somewhere else and doing something else.
That seems like a long time to me.
40 seconds.
How ridiculous.
Yeah.
There is no way, and I mean, I do have a bit of neurodivergence, but there is no way that I can look at a website for 40 seconds straight.
But isn't that crazy though? Because it's saying like
We
that
used to be able to. We've been conditioned.
that you need to have a new stimulus. And then when I think you break that down into other parts of your life, like you said, Britt, this idea about, well, what's the next thing, especially in terms of dating? You know, like you go on a date with someone and if they haven't ticked the magical boxes, that arbitrary benchmark that we sometimes set for that unicorn person, then we think like, okay, well, you know, do I have someone else in the bag?
It's almost like, you know, TikTok came in and the reason TikTok went bonkers is because in the first 3 seconds, it got your attention. Now, we all know as people that are creating content, they all speak amongst themselves that within the first 3 seconds has to hook people in because people lose interest.
Oh yeah, there's a formula to making a good TikTok.
Well, in dating, are we supposed to come in the first 3 seconds and like bang out a joke to try and get their attention, or are they going to lose interest? Like,
That's why your prompts are so important.
No, but in real life, when you meet someone, I feel like the first 3 minutes, because you're going to change, I feel like there's this level of pressure now that everyone's putting on because of these things like TikTok, that you've got to put your best foot forward and hook them in the first 3 minutes, or they're going to be back on their like online dating. Is that where the world's heading?
Well, they are. That's definitely what's
Like
happening. I mean,
sitting
this
at
is
the dinner swiping.
Well, I mean, I'm sure people have experienced that, but I don't think that this is a new take or a hot take in terms of like, as things become more immediate in our lives, as we have a greater access to things as instantly as we want them, our attention spans and our patience for waiting for something to develop is decreasing. I think that there's a correlation between those two things.
I mean, that being said, we're not shitting on online dating. Britt, you met your boyfriend there.
I only meet people online dating, like my whole entire existence.
Well,
I had a very good time back in the day, but I also met some shit people.
There was research done by the Pew Research Center in 2019 that found that over half of the people surveyed said that their relationships where you met through a dating app were just as successful, if not more successful, than if you met like, you know, through friends or in real life.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
but
everyone I know, most people I know have met their partners online. Like I would say more so than not now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think because it doesn't matter what type of person you are, it doesn't matter whether you're extrovert or you're introverted, it's kind of a bit more of an even playing field online. You know, you don't have to walk up to someone in a bar. You don't have to try and put yourself out there in a way that feels really exposing in real life.
Well, rejection is far easier to take behind a screen.
Yeah,
than
do you
it
guys
is
ever
in
think about the people
person.
who swipe left on you? Because like we don't think about that. We don't
No.
think about the people who
But
are
if-
like, no, thank you.
Absolutely. But you think about the person that you said, can I get your number? And they said no. You're like, oh,
Totally.
like that stays with you.
Yeah, totally.
I think the psychology behind this is really interesting, and there is a lot about it. It does go quite in depth, but to keep it at a bit of a baseline, this constant need for having everything right now, not wanting to wait for anything, not having any patience, makes us always look for the next best thing. We're always looking towards the future, and we don't sit in the present. We don't enjoy the moment. We don't look around and live in this space of this is happening right now. This is how I feel right now. It's how am I going to feel when I get the next thing? How am I going to feel when I get the next thing? The idea of getting delayed gratification, which is what they call it, where you just have to work so hard for something and then you finally achieve it and then you finally feel amazing. That is taken away from us, and we're constantly looking for immediate gratification. We want something to make us feel good right now. Like it's like a drug. And what that does is it makes us value experiences and objects less.
Funny you say that because do you guys know Andrew Huberman? He does the Huberman Lab podcast.
Yeah, one of the biggest in the world. We do know him.
Who is he again?
He's a neuroscientist. He's at Stanford University. He's such a daddy as well. But
He knows his shit.
Oh my God, you can't call him a daddy.
Yeah, ew.
What
He's
makes him a daddy?
he's known as Science Daddy in the science.
Okay, a lot of you guys
space.
won't know this, but like this is kind of like Keisha's kink is science background because that's where she's come from. Back in the day,
I've never heard
she's
you
a little
call-
science nerd.
I've never heard you call anyone daddy. That made me feel a bit unwell.
It's not I haven't called him that. He's known as Science Daddy.
Keisha, we have this on record. You just quote said he's a bit of a daddy.
Huberman is a science daddy.
Wait, can we tweet him at Huberman, you're a daddy? Come on the
Hashtag
podcast.
science daddy.
Let's try and get him on the pod.
Oh, my heart rate just went up thinking about that. I
bet it
absolutely
did.
love him.
Keisha's slipping off the seat.
So I listen to a lot about rewards, and it's interesting you say that it's kind of like a drug because it genuinely is. So the circuitry in the brain that has to do with our reward, he speaks a lot about this and about our need to delay gratification. So I won't get too sciencey, but basically our constant need to get a reward ends up lowering our baseline dopamine. So it kind of means that we end up not enjoying the process enough. All we're after is that dopamine hit from the reward. But when you consistently do that over and over and over again, like a drug, you need bigger things to fill that cup.
I think the thing that's important though is that we're talking about this as though people are out there, like that we're actively seeking the instant reward. I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge it's not that you're going out or that I'm going out and I'm actively seeking to be like, I want my dopamine hit now. It's been 30 seconds. The world is working against you. TikTok is working against you. All the things that we experience now, the fact that we have access to stuff without having to wait for anything, as much as it is an absolute blessing, it is so convenient. I will never give up my Uber Eats. It also works in the detriment that you're not going out there looking for a dopamine hit, but you're getting it anyway. Everything that has been created on Facebook, everything that's been created on social media, the way that dating apps have been designed are to feed into this instantaneous gratification.
Yeah, but on what Keisha's saying is I totally understand what she's saying. She's not saying a reward like you run a marathon and you get the trophy. It doesn't have to be this big all-consuming event. It can be as small and insignificant as you're sitting at home and you're like, oh, I've got a chocolate craving. I'll go to the fridge, get a chocolate. That chocolate is your reward. That is your instant fix. And there is evidence to say that when you are constantly rewarding yourselves so quickly without working for it, the reward doesn't hit the same. So over time, you do get less of this dopamine hit. It doesn't feel as good as if you haven't had chocolate for 3 weeks and then you know that in your head, I'm going to have that chocolate when I finish cleaning the house on the weekend. It hits different because you've taken it away, you've worked a bit harder for it, and it's not the instant gratification. Now, there is science behind that, and I think that there's really something to be said for that.
Yeah, Science Daddy talks about it all the time.
Science Daddy loves delayed gratification.
Well, okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what delayed gratification is though, because I think that that's a really important thing to kind of establish properly. So it's a very fucking simple concept truly, but delayed gratification being something that people who are very successful in work or in their relationships, high earner incomes, use it without really necessarily realizing that they use it. And it basically just links back into this concept of self-control, right? So like we're all going to be exposed to temptations every single day in all different variations. And that is basically how immediacy culture works. But delayed gratification is having the self-control to say, I'm going to say no to this temptation because I have a bigger goal in mind. So maybe, I mean, let's put it into terms of relationships for a second. Maybe you are with someone and you're like, yes, we're going to be together and we're going to have kids together and we're going to get married and we've got all these great big end goals. Like that's what you want for your life as a couple. And then your partner is going out drinking every fucking Monday through to Sunday, even though he's saying, I want these big life things. And I'm sure he does want these big life things, but the behavior on the day-to-day is what's getting in the way of being able to achieve those big life things. And it's the giving into temptation, whether it's drinking, whether it's fucking hooking up with someone else, whatever it is. That's a pretty extreme example, but it's the temptation that stops you being able to achieve that greater goal.
There was a really interesting study that's done on this exact concept, but it was done in children, but they found that it kind of mimicked what adults behave like as well, where they had, I can't remember who did the research, but there was a kid in a room and the researcher came in and said, here's a marshmallow. I'm going to go out and do something. And if I come back in and this marshmallow is still here and you haven't eaten it, you can have another one.
So you can have two.
You can have two. So the reward's going to be better if you wait. They basically were filming these kids the whole time and they were trying to determine like how many of these children have the concept of if I delay this, you know, literal reward of the marshmallow, I'm going to get something bigger in return. And they found that it actually mimicked the patterns of adults as well, but obviously not with marshmallows, with much bigger things like careers and things that you want really badly, like you said, relationships.
I think this is so interesting. And one of the reasons why we're going to speak to psychologist Sandy Ray in a second is because I mean, we grew up in a society where we've straddled both. We've straddled having to wait for things and we've straddled immediacy culture, right? We know how convenient our lives are now because of technology. But we also lived in a time where, guess what? If you wanted something, you usually had to wait for it. If you wanted to, I don't know, send a bloody letter, you couldn't send an email. You had to go to the post office. You had to write a postcard. Like if you wanted to do an assignment, we had to go to the library and go and get out the thesaurus and sit there in the library and underline shit. Like we didn't have it as immediately as what the new generation does. And our parents obviously had it way slower than what we did. But the thing it makes me think about is, what is that impact going to be on kids? Our children who we're raising, who are growing up in a world where they literally can have anything as soon as they want it. What does that mean when the time comes in life for the big things? Maybe it's fertility. Maybe it's finding a relationship. I don't know. It doesn't always have to be about relationships, but those big milestones that sometimes you can't have as soon as you want them. Being at the top of your career, you can't have it as soon as you want it because it's something that you have to work towards. There's a process. But when we're conditioning children to think you can have something immediately, because that is literally how the world works right now, I don't know how we build that in kids. I don't know how we build patience in kids.
Can I bring up something really ironic and quite hilarious that we haven't mentioned? Everyone listening to this right now and us recording this right now, this is a podcast. This is available immediately as you want it. You can pause it if you need to go and do something in between, or if you turn off your car and you want to go upstairs. Like, we feed into immediacy culture. We created a podcast because we wanted people to be able to be like, I want to listen on my dog walk this morning and I get to choose when I do that. And if you compare that to traditional media of radio, you had to be in the car at the right time. You know, you'd have the ads and the songs playing and you didn't really have so much of a choice of it.
Yeah, think of how annoying it is. I'm like,
what, your radio show?
No, yeah. No,
which you can also listen to in our podcast feed whenever you want.
In case you don't want to get in the car at a certain time.
Think of how annoying it is. And this was my suck a few episodes ago. My sweet was this show, You, that came out. And my suck was that they only released a few and then they paused it. Then they were going to release the second half of the series in a couple of weeks. That was my suck because I was like, I want it now. Literally on this podcast, my suck was something wasn't available to me immediately. And there's an idea with the podcast too. It's like, yes, it's available for you to come and go in an episode, but there is a part of you that's like, I want the next podcast now. We still crave it. It is never enough. And when I think personally how this has affected me, I 100% think that I'm such a disorganized person because of the availability of anything I need. If things weren't available to me, I'm talking about I book appointments at the last minute. I pay my regos and insurance at the 9th hour.
After having to fucking dig at me, I know.
I submit everything everything. I book flights last minute. I do everything. I'm so ridiculously disorganized because I know that I can be, because there's always a way to access something at any time of the day. Whereas if nothing was available for even buying bridesmaids dresses for my sister's wedding, I did it at the last minute because I know somewhere there'll be someone that would deliver something to me in a day. I don't have to think months ahead and plan.
And if there were problems with that order, you could chat to a chat bot.
Exactly.
If it wasn't the right time for someone to actually be manning the office, you'd chat to a chat bot and it'd probably get you everything that you need.
But I think, where is the line though? Because the problem is that the more that we lean into it, the more that we expect things. Like when you say chat bot, it's like you want an answer to your problem now.
Yeah.
Like when we have something that pops into our brain that we're like, fuck, that's an issue. Like if you send an email to someone, you expect them to get back to you within the same working day. Like it's frustrating when somebody takes their time to get back to an email. We expect this always on, always accessible to pretty much everything in our life. And it's like, where is the limit to that? Where is it that we get to a point where it's like, people shouldn't have to always be so on. Things shouldn't have to be always so available to cater to this impossible level of accessibility.
Sandy, welcome back to Life Uncut. You are a friend of the podcast. You're a frequent flyer. It has been a hot second though, but thanks for jumping back on today.
My pleasure. Good to see you both.
Now, we were talking about this whole idea of immediacy culture, and we were like sitting there and having a conversation about it as friends, but we thought, you know what, it's probably important to get on someone who actually knows what it is that they're talking about. Can you give us a bit of an overview? What is delayed gratification and why is it so important in how we exercise like self-control?
Well, delayed gratification is, as the name implies, it's about actually turning things in your life and saying, I need to wait, I need to measure, I need to pace things out. So it means that we get, rather than being impulsive and creating a world of immediacy and emptiness, and I'll get onto that down the track, but it means that we have a tolerance to pace our lives in a measurable way.
And why is that pacing so important?
By having, a lot of gratification that's really immediate, it teaches our brains, right, we're on. There's no boundaries, there's no controls, there's expectations in how we conduct ourselves in relationships. There's expectations of how a career should fulfill us. If it doesn't add up really quickly, we exit.
I was just having a little giggle then because it's so ironic. Us talking about this right now, immediacy culture, but we had a big scheduling change this week. So we actually messaged you late last night to see if you could jump on and we were like, hey,
we need to immediately
have back on, but can you get back to us right now late at night and can it be tomorrow morning and this has to happen right now?
I'm on my phone. Yes, I can do that. That's
and
fine.
You're like, absolutely, what's it about? And we're like, volcano, immediacy culture. It's very ironic that we're like, we need to speak about this because this is a real problem in society. But I mean, we're guilty of it ourselves in everyday life. And I do wonder how detrimental it is without us knowing subconsciously, because it has so many positives. The accessibility and availability of anything you need. Clothing for a wedding tomorrow. Food that you want right now. We even had this milk run, which you could send any one item to your house. I used milk run 5 times a week. I was so guilty of pressing a button and wanting my dog's food here in 15 minutes because I didn't even want to leave the house. And online dating. Everything is accessible, which obviously comes with its positives. But what do you think are the other negatives that, what's the flip side of having everything at our fingertips all the time?
Well, I think the flip side, one is, all those things that you've talked about, but I think also what the flip side is this capacity to self-soothe and self-regulate. And tell me if I'm boring you to tears, and I may have mentioned it one other time, but I think that one of the greatest gifts that we can give our children, and in relationships, adolescents and then becoming adults, is this idea of learning to self-regulate and self-soothe. So that when children don't get their own way, do we say, yes, here you go, have it, just shut up. Here's a McDonald's, eat whatever you like, do whatever you like. But that's really doing an injustice because how they then grow up and enter into relationships becomes really problematic about how they manage themselves, conduct themselves, how they expect to be looked after in a work environment. But I think also it really instills a great sense of disappointment. My partner doesn't match up to my needs. You're out.
My expectations. Yeah, I expect something to be done now. It's not done.
Now. And, you become almost, and again, I've seen this probably many times, this empty vessel of a person. Fill me up. And it's always the onus is on a partner, a job, makeup, clothes. And, of course, we all love that immediacy. We all love to be, kept in the loop with ideas and gossip and stories and things like that. But also it really leads to almost what I would call a risk of becoming a vacuous self. There's this emptiness because you can't tolerate the pain of actually being on your own, not being in the loop, sitting with yourself. And in fact, a lot of psychological health, when people go, I'm feeling so depressed or scared or anxious. And I go, you know what? You actually have to learn to sit with a level of psychological pain. That's part of growing up. If you're sad for a few days, that's normal. So I think this idea of gratification is, okay, let's have a quick fix with drugs. If I'm feeling sad, I'll go and get pissed for the night. I'll go out raging and have wild sex. That will ameliorate some of the pain. And this is all part of that gratification train ride, I think. So I just think that we really need to give some thought about, well, what is it like just to sit with ourselves? What is the worst fear that I have? What is wrong with not having some control in my life?
We were talking about this earlier, and something that and this was more of a self-reflective thing. I've described myself in the past, and I think I've worked through it quite a bit, but I was quite codependent in my past relationships. Do you think that for people who struggle with codependency, that they have a higher threshold to sort of fall into trouble with this sort of immediacy culture, not having good boundaries, not being able to kind of tolerate that alone time, as you say?
That's a really good point. I was going to ask you, first of all, the psychologist steps in. What do you mean by codependency?
Personally, I struggled being on my own, and I would always find somebody to fill that space. I always had to have some sort of external validation, and I think when I was in my 20s, I really struggled to find the validation within myself, and that discomfort, I couldn't and didn't like being on my own. I hadn't done the self-work, I guess, enough to understand that that's what I was doing. But that is absolutely, looking back, how I soothed myself.
It's a perfect introduction to the topic. It's great. And I think that's really what's going on now. Look at Tinder, look at the likes that we get, look at the validation that we often seek. And I think that this whole idea of I've got to be resolved in my psychological health or relationship health now and immediately, and I don't want to have to do the hard yards. If I had a magic pill, I would give it to you. But the idea of understanding it takes time. It's like when we have to look after our children. Our children don't turn out a perfect end product. It takes lots of trial and error and, discussing with our partners how we want our children to be. So I think that this idea of self-gratification and not self-gratification, but soothing ourselves is really a priority.
Sandy, you are a behavioral psychologist. So this is something that, I would love to know more about, and that is, I'm not a parent, so I can't talk to it, but I'm interested how important giving your child everything they want whenever they want is in their development and how that affects the child growing up. So should we be giving a child anything they want and anything they ask for and anything they demand just to shut them up? Because I know a lot of people that are parents, they're like, I know I shouldn't be doing it, but I just want a peace and quiet for 1 minute. So I give them the iPad, I give them the burger, I give them the ice cream, whatever they want. What effects does that have on a child growing up?
I think it very much teaches how the child from a very early age conducts themselves, how they see their self-image, how they see they can manage their psychological health. If they cry and have a tantrum, do we have the time to sit with that tantrum? And I think this part is immediacy culture, because we've got parents who are going, tap, 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 be quiet, tap, tap. So you're not being mindful. And we've all, I've got 3 girls. We've all been there, what it's like to be pressed for time and prioritising. You've got kids rambling around. And there's a difference between, short-term giving them things to be quiet, blah, 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 put the TV on, sure, give an iPad, whatever. But overall, we really have to be very diligent in ensuring that we don't produce entitled brats. Because entitled brats grow up to be obnoxious teenagers who grow up to generally be assholes in partnerships and in romantic relationships.
Are they all the technical terms? Entitled brats, assholes?
So with asshole in relationships a bit too much.
Do you think with the advances in technology and with this whole idea that, majoritively we can have whatever we want whenever we want it, do you think that that's impacting our ability as adults to be patient and to feel patient with our children, with our work, with our friends?
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking even now, my brain's just jumping around, as you've just said. We talked about disappointment and expectations, both in ourselves, in relationships, in careers, work-life balance, all those sort of things. Absolutely, it impacts. But as you're talking, I'm also thinking of things like even currently, the Chat GPT. What does that tell us about the world that we're living in? I've got to get an essay done. I'm going to go on to Chat GPT. We don't learn critical thinking skills. We don't learn discipline. We don't learn any of the sense, you've got to study and apply yourself. So I think there's a whole package there of what do we want in ourselves as a result of accessing information constantly. Have you heard of intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation?
No.
Okay, so very quickly. So intrinsic motivation is everything is internally driven and you set your own expectations and manage what pulls you to do a particular thing. And that involves delayed gratification. So as you know, when you study, I'm currently doing my PhD and I'm in my 3rd year now, and I don't think I've had barely a day of gratification.
Yeah, you're like, get me to that end goal.
It's really delayed.
I sit here every day doing something.
And you're like, that dopamine hit better hit me hard.
It's really, I'm hoping by the end stretch it's really going to be kicking in and giving me some reward. There's the idea of, this intrinsic motivation that pulls you, your self-worth, your self-esteem. It's something that you want to do. And the delayed gratification is enormous. So you have to find out what is it that in life, and this is one of the joys that we give our kids, is what joy can they find in their world?
How do you link this back? And I think, something that we spoke about a little bit is when we live in an immediate culture that tells us you can have anything whenever you want it, you become fixated on having whatever it is that's next. It's very disposable. And also that's just the byproduct of being the capitalist society that we are. You can get anything you want online and you can get it really, really fast. But what is there in terms of focusing more on the process towards something, or breaking things down in terms of the process to create a product or the process to achieve something as a way of being able to reframe ourselves to focus less on the end goal, but on the actual journey to get there?
And you've used a really good word there, Laura, the journey to get there. And I think this idea of this constant connectivity is really something that's quite debilitating for a lot of us. We've all heard of people who go, I'm challenging myself to get off Instagram for 3 hours a night. And I think that really, again, this idea of self-soothing is very threatening to a lot of people. What does it look like if I'm not constantly connected? Who do I miss out? We could talk about, FOMO, great big neon sign for a lot of people. They're worried about, do they have the right clothes? Do they have the right makeup? Are they mixing in the right circles? Who's getting what? What have I missed out on? And I think that this whole connectivity thing undermines a lot of people's capacity, shall I say, to look after themselves. That in the end, it's a lean in on everybody else the whole time. So actually starting to set some discipline in your life is one way of doing that. And that sounds really harsh and school teacher-ish, but we talk about if I want to get fit, it requires discipline. And for some reason, people get a little bit aghast when you talk about mental health, which is what all this is actually about. People get a little bit sort of affronted. What do you mean mental health requires discipline? Well, yes, mental health actually does require discipline, just in the same way as physical health. So if you want to get off this immediacy culture, this constant need for validation, affirmation, connectivity, it's going to require some reflexivity. So reflexivity means looking inward. What do I need? What am I wasting my time on? What do I need to do? What do I want out of relationships? You talked about before about a codependent relationship. How did you break that cycle? Well, I would imagine it required a lot of self-discipline on your behalf.
She got married. Yeah, that fixes that one.
He's always there now. I had 2 children and got married. Yeah, I agree. But I feel like I wasn't as reflective. It wasn't like I came to this big fork in the road and I realized and then I changed my ways. I was very lucky that things changed in my life, and then reflecting back, they were good changes. But I don't think that we can be as hopeful that things just work out, because often they don't.
Well, they don't. And this is exactly to my point. It actually requires discipline. So if you're constantly having this sense of emptiness that I'm not getting what I want, not getting where I need, what is it? And it's a really big challenge. When I got divorced many years ago, I remember thinking, how do I want my life to work out? I've got 3 girls. What do they need from me? And amongst all the tears and the drama and the distress of a divorce, I had a very clear vision of what I needed to be. And first of all, I thought, well, I have to be the primary income earner. I have to go back and study, because that's probably what I'm best at, is studying and then working. So I thought, well, that'll be a good investment. And so I actually took time to really sit and reflect, how do I want this family now to run?
As an adult, how do we self-soothe? What are some tips you could give people you need to be more present, more in the now, and not rely on that instant gratification?
I think one of the first things I would go to is, what are you most vulnerable about? What are the vulnerabilities in your life? Because when you're the opposite of control, which is often manifested in anxiety, is vulnerability. So rather than looking at the anxiety, I would look at the vulnerabilities, which should give you some insight as to what controls you need to put in. So if you're vulnerable, for instance, to drinking a lot, whatever it is, if you find that you're on a constant turntable of relationships, that they're always dissatisfying, that you're not getting the how come how many times do we hear people say, I always seem to meet the same sort of person? Well, you always meet the same sort of person and end up in shitty relationships because you are behaving in the same way. You're doing the same things over and over. And it takes someone to be challenged and saying, if you want the same outcome, continue the same way. So, looking at your vulnerabilities in terms of what is it that I need to shake up? And I think that's probably the most immediate answer that I can give to that. And as a psychologist, that's also what I say to my clients. What are your vulnerabilities? What is it that's not working? And why are you so stuck that you're coming to see me? And if I could say one thing, if all of this is to empower women to be able to look after themselves, that's really one of my overarching therapeutic goals, and talking to other women. It's to not make themselves vulnerable and disabled to anxiety or can't control my life. And I might sound a bit tough or a bit harsh, but it's really because I really want women to be able to look after themselves.
Well, we never end an episode without our suck and our sweet, our highlight and our lowlight of the week. Laura Johnson-Byrne, do you want to kick it off?
I'm not a Johnson-Byrne. Just a Byrne.
Okay.
I'll go by it. It's fine. I'm not going to say don't call me that, but
you just did, so.
Yeah, no, because it just feels weird. Johnson-Byrne is such a long one. Also, let's not skim over the fact that Johnson-Byrne is like a burning Johnson, like a Johnson.
Yeah, but only if you say burn Johnson.
A burning
first.
Johnson,
Penis.
a big burning penis.
Yeah.
Is what comes to mind.
Ben actually asked me this week, he's like, if we got married, Cute, because we talk about that.
Yeah.
Cute. I'm not blushing, you're blushing.
No, it's actually, it's not cute. Cute sounds patronizing. It's so nice that you guys, even though it's early on, but you're doing this long distance, that you're having those conversations.
Totally.
And it's like, it's purposeful, you know?
But it was like, would you want to be a Hockley Segrist or a Segrist Hockley? Like, would you want to hyphenate? And I don't know. And then we were talking about you. That's why I came up.
I think
He
you'd
was
just
like,
be a
Deborah.
Hockley.
And not change my name?
And not change. Well, I feel like you might change it personally in your personal life, but I don't think you would change it in your media life.
I think that's what I got to. I think I would change it officially.
But then if you're lazy like me and hate paperwork, you just never change anything. And that's where I'm at.
Because if I had kids, I think I'd want the same name as them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, getting into suck and sweet. My suck for the week is, as you guys know, that I'm training for Ninja Warrior. My schedule's been so back to back.
Oh, that backflip you did when you came in was crazy.
Yeah, I'm getting fucking ripped, guys.
That backflip that you did and landed in the chair to record today.
I know.
That was impressive.
I also, my upper body strength is like bananas now. I can pretty much hang from the ceiling for 4 hours.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So I am training for something. I will keep on breadcrumbing you, but I am getting so fit. My fitness is like, whew, especially considering I've not done any exercise for 2.5 years.
That's amazing.
So that's probably more sweet. But my suck is that every single moment of my day at the moment, if I'm not here, if I'm not with my kids, I'm training. Like, it's taking up a lot of my physical time and energy and space. And I really, really desperately needed to book in to get a haircut, but I couldn't sacrifice going and spending 2.5 hours getting my hair cut.
To cut your hair?
Oh, just like, you know, that you got to drive there.
Yeah,
you got to get your hair. Anyway, I was like, I don't have 2.5 hours midweek to give to getting my hair cut at the moment. I just don't. So I complained to Matt about being too busy, and he was like, I'll cut your hair. So he did.
And that's why half of your head is shaved.
Friday night, after a couple of wines, Matt cut my hair. And to be fair, he did a very good job. Like, I'm surprised by how even it is. I haven't seen the back yet, so I don't know for certain if it's even.
Well, it's supposed to be layered, right? It's not a blood cut, is it? It's supposed to be a mullet. Was that what we were going for?
Do you know you're shaved at the back?
Yeah, an undercut.
So he cut my hair, and I think he did a good job. But my suck is just the fact that I've had to get to the point in life where my partner's cutting my hair.
I cut my own hair last week. I trimmed it, but I'm embarrassed to say it's just because I'm lazy. I actually have the time to go to the hairdresser, but I was just like, oh, it looks uneven. I'll just trim it.
But you've got hair extensions, so you can kind of get
it's
away with
still
it.
hair.
Yeah, but you're not actually cutting your physical hair. Like, if you fuck that up, you can take them out and get new ones put in, and you're fine.
Yeah.
I got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I got nowhere to hide, people.
No, he's done a good job. So that should be a sweet.
Matt needs to have a change of career. Hairdressing. He's very good at it.
Love that.
He also cuts the kids' hair as well. Molly only has been to the hairdressers once in her little life.
I love that.
But he cuts her hair.
I mean, don't you remember growing up? My mum used to cut all 4 of us kids' hair. We used to get the bowl and the fringe went straight across. I had like the head.
Did she actually put a bowl on you? Or was it just the bowl
For
cut?
the fringe it was. No, she put it across the front because it would make the fringe pretty even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so I've experienced that. Okay.
Budget at home haircuts. All right, no, but my sweet for the week is that I went out for dinner with my sister and also with one of my gorgeous, she was my staff, but she's also a really good friend of mine who moved to Adelaide. And that's why we were talking about Adelaide on
cute.
Friday night. And that was so nice. So that's, why I had to cut
And
my
you took
hair.
your new haircut out.
Yeah, I cut my hair.
This
go
new
out for
haircut
dinner.
has got to hit the town.
Oh, nah, look, man. There's
I could
some
fix
bits.
it up. I'll fix
There's
it up.
some bits that are not in line.
Yeah.
Keisha, look.
But you've got to look pretty close to see it.
The face again. They're like, oh, fuck.
If your hair was dead straight, it'd be more obvious because you got some little natural waves in there.
Yeah, it's good. When your
you can
hair is
get away
already
with it.
ragged
Yeah.
and you're still suffering from postpartum hair fall, it means
Yeah.
that no one can tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue. What's your suck?
Okay, my suck this week is, and I love that I have to relate my life like it's yours. I have to really spend some quality time with Delilah, my dog, this week. Because I've been away so much. She goes to producer Keisha or she goes to a dog walker.
Yeah, she doesn't even know that you're her mother anymore.
Today was the first time she's been really off me. So she came home this morning, literally came up to me, and I imagine her internal monologue was like, looks me up and down and was like, hey, mum, and then just walked away.
She's a teenager now as well. She was like, fuck you, mum.
She was. I'm going to have to win her over with some fresh salmon tonight. But she was off me and it was upsetting because then Sherry came out of the room and she was all over her and loved her. And she made a real point of excluding me today. I felt really excluded in my own home by my dog. And I realize saying this out loud now how ridiculous it is.
It's not ridiculous. It's actually very, very relatable. I feel like that by my own children all the time. So I think it's completely the same.
But I actually read a study this week, coincidentally.
Was it about plants
I'm
and
really
giving them
reading the
love?
studies. Dogs genuinely judge their owners in terms of they judge you with what you're doing. If they think you're doing something embarrassing or inappropriate, there's actually studies that say they judge you. So the little bitch is judging me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my suck.
And you can call her a little bitch because she is.
Literally, she's a bitch.
She's a bitch.
Yeah, so before anyone writes a headline saying I'm being mean to my dog.
Laura called Brittany's dog a bitch. I can't wait for someone to be like, why is Laura so mean to Brittany's dog? Anyway, continue.
Laura ruins everything.
Laura ruins everything.
But to be fair, like I've
You do.
ruined things heaps in the past. If you read reviews, like we've both ruined stuff.
I don't care, I'm
We
joking.
take it in turns. So I don't want you to feel alone in the ruining stuff because I've
In
ruined
ruining
shit
this
too.
podcast.
Yeah. I've ruined heaps of stuff if you listen to some people.
Okay, what is your sweet for the week?
My sweet for the week has happened, but also hasn't happened. But Ben officially is coming to Australia, not to live, but
Wow.
to visit in a few weeks.
For how long?
He'll be here for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. And then I will go back over with him for our mid-year break for a couple of weeks.
So he's coming in June.
Yeah, really, really soon. And so
month.
he only just not decided, but he was given the green light yesterday. So he's booking the flight and he's coming to Australia. So I'm like nervous, excited. I don't know why I'm nervous.
So cute.
Because it's my world now. Like I've been over to his world so much. But I mean, you guys will get to know him properly and I don't know, but I feel a lot of pressure. Like I have to sell Australia to him so that he wants to live here forever.
You need to get rid of the spiders that are in your house then.
Oh, yeah. He's bringing his own lavender spray. He's convinced that you spray lavender on the doors and it stops the spiders coming. Switzerland doesn't have any killer animals. They just have like cows and stuff. So he's a bit concerned about. He thinks that you walk down the street, there's like an alligator, and then you put your toe in the ocean and there's a shark. Like he's convinced that there's just these killer animals everywhere.
I mean, to be fair, there are. Just don't go to North Queensland. Anyway, guys.
Wait, that's where we're going?
That is it from us. If you love the episode, jump on, leave a review. You can join us on Facebook where we have the Life Uncut discussion group. You can also join us on Instagram or on TikTok at Life Uncut Podcast.
Don't forget to tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends and share the love because we love love.